Perfect. So for the purpose of this interview, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Perfect. So my name is Ayotunde Rufai. I am the co-founder and CEO of JENDAYA, a luxury e-commerce platform focusing on the African continental luxury shopper, but available globally. Before that, I was an investment banker. I was on the commodities desk, so sales and trading. And before that, I studied biological sciences at uni, and I did a master's in entrepreneurship after working for 4 years in investment banking. And then I worked at a startup for a year and 2 months before
Amazing.
doing JENDAYA full time. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, so you've had quite the journey. So I think the thing that stands out to most people that will probably watch this is what actually prompted your move from investment banking into the startup world, and I guess into the world of fashion, really.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of moving from investment banking to entrepreneurship full time, it was more so because I had found an idea. I had found an idea that I was most passionate about, and I knew it had legs, and I knew it had promise. And so when it got to the stage where one, I was feeling very demotivated about my job, and but feeling a lot of confidence and and feeling confidence towards the idea and the conviction. That's when I decided to leave to do a master's. So it was like a soft landing into entrepreneurship. So I did the master's, and after doing the master's, then I worked at a startup for a year and a bit, and then came to do this full time. So it was kind of a process. I know some people get that conviction and get to that same stage and then leave immediately. But for me, it was a process. And before that, actually, whilst I was on my grad scheme, I had started a magazine with 2 friends. So it wasn't my first time foraying into being an entrepreneur. It was just the first time I kind of felt this is what I want to do full time. Because that first venture, the first magazine, was a great run. But after my work took over, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore, because it wasn't a venture that I thought would be something that I know JENDAYA was going to be. And then to answer your question about fashion, I guess, I've always had an interest in fashion. Everyone who knows me knows that. And they always would say that you're going to do something in fashion. And I knew that as well, but I just thought it would be alongside my day job in banking. And so it made sense when I started the magazine with my friends. It was a fashion, lifestyle and cultural magazine. So, we did a lot of stuff with fashion brands, worked with models in like Louis Vuitton, and like had campaigns from Bevel and Ghost perfumes in there. And then, so, that was like the first expression of being an entrepreneur and doing something in fashion whilst I was at my grad job. And then, actually taking it full on with JENDAYA. So I've always been interested in fashion.
Yeah. Amazing. So you touched on something quite key, actually, I guess, about your motivation into moving into fashion. So more specifically, talk me through your motivation behind starting JENDAYA, because evidently you are solving a problem. Talk me through that whole process.
Okay, so I mean, it's quite anecdotal for me. So my auntie, like probably a lot of us, used to send me like to Harrods and Selfridges just to exchange gifts, return gifts, reserve stuff for her before like they were sent to her house in London. And so one summer, specifically summer 2017, I kind of asked her, like, why don't you just order it directly to your place in Lagos, to your house in Lagos? And she didn't really give me an answer. It was just kind of like, that's not how things are done. So I was like, I bet I'm going to just do some research, look at the reports in terms of actually like what's the size of the luxury goods buying like market for Africans on the continent, and like looking at stats about like Africans spending abroad on luxury. Like, okay, so they evidently have the money, they evidently have the taste level, so what's stopping them from ordering these things back home? So then making some research initially with data, and then like the secondary research out there was saying more the infrastructure, but then carrying out our initial kind of questionnaire, it was more so because they didn't trust like the authenticity of products if they were ordering it into Nigeria. Like, what if something happens to it? What if we don't get the authentic product? And then secondly, they just felt that, you know, all the platforms out there weren't really catering to Africans. They were more so had a very European or Western lens. And so things like, you know, even advertising to them, they didn't care to advertise to them. The amount of time it took to get to them was another story. I mean, the customs on top of that, everything just wasn't making sense. It wasn't worth it for them. So getting that questionnaire out, then it was for us to answer, okay, what exactly would make Africans who clearly have the taste level and the money comfortable and confident to order things to their homes in Mozambique, in South Africa, in Lagos, the same way was sport for choice here in London and in the West, where we can go on matches, you know, support News of the Aroma, you know, and all the rest. And all of that. So, yeah.
Amazing. So noting that you obviously did a master's in entrepreneurship, how do you feel that actually helped you in the running of your business and obviously moving into JENDAYA full time?
Yeah, no, I actually think, and this doesn't get said a lot, especially about undergrads, like, yeah, my undergrad didn't really teach me much, blah, blah, blah. It was more the soft skills. But I do feel for once, like the actual content of my entrepreneurship master's really helped in me running JENDAYA. And I think that was because I was already running JENDAYA alongside. I was already doing it while I was still at my graduate, was doing it alongside doing my master's, and I did my master's full time. So I think it was in real time, so I could really apply the lessons that from our different modules to the business we were running. And some of the things I could be like, oh my God, we didn't learn this, and we were doing it correctly by the book. And some things we were doing, we were like, oh, actually, this is how to do it better from what I was learning. So I could actually directly apply the learnings. But I think beyond that, it was great for the network that I built. I mean, I can't like stress enough how, you know, when you do a master's, I think, or an MBA or anything, it's actually more so for the connections, and that I think I really utilize. I've always been good at networking. I mean, for banking or professional services, you know, you always have to be a networker. So I think that came in handy, and it definitely really helped the journey.
Amazing. So let's delve really more into JENDAYA. What companies would you say currently exist that inspire you, whether it be the journeys of their founders or their respective business models?
Amazing. I was number one, first and foremost, I would say Farfetch. So Joseph Neves, the founder of Farfetch. Because our business model is exactly like Farfetch. So it's a marketplace model. We onboard and we list brands from brands directly and multi-brand boutiques from around the world. So we take a commission. So that's how. So our model is exactly like the Farfetch model. And Joseph Neves, I really like. You know, he's a business guy. He kind of he's not very in front of the camera. And I know being in front of the camera and taking press and all of that definitely helps, especially at this grassroots level where, you know, people need to know about you. But, you know, he doesn't do much of that, but he does the job, and he's a great guy. So, you know, and I always used to attend a lot of the Farfetch events whilst I was on my master's and before that as well, because very much inspired. So Joseph Neves is Farfetch. And then we also take inspiration from Net-a-Porter, so Natalie Massenet, more so the way that Net-a-Porter connected and combined content and commerce. There's no other e-commerce platform that matches them on that level. And because obviously she was a journalist initially, so I kind of feel like, well, I'd started a magazine before. Maybe that's why we understand the importance and the power of having a strong editorial element, which, you know, for the last years, JENDAYA has just been an editorial platform. So Natalie Massenet and Net-a-Porter. And then, so I would say those two companies. And then genuinely, I guess, people that I admire within fashion would be people like Jerry Lorenzo from Fury, Kirby from Pirmos, Kirby from Pirmos. Yeah, pretty much them people.
Amazing. I think it's always great to kind of hear who people are inspired by and maybe who they look to in the whole ecosystem that they, I guess, would admire to an extent. And you mentioned something quite key about sort of content and commerce. Someone actually said to me quite anecdotally earlier on this week that the world is moving towards the 3 C's, which is content, commerce, and community, which I think from the research that I did looking at JENDAYA is evidently the spaces in which you're trying to occupy. Yeah, so companies like Killimore and Takealot exist respectively, serving the Kenyan and South African markets respectively. JENDAYA is looking to serve consumers across the continent. What made you go down that route rather than maybe focusing on just one country?
Yeah, because I think, you know, when when we were conceptualizing Jendaya, we thought of companies like Net-a-Porter, like Matches, like
Mm.
Farfetch, like Modo Operandi, which is for everyone in the West. It's not just for Europeans, it's not just for Africans, it's not just for people in the Middle East. It's a global platform, but globally with the anecdotes around leaving out Africa as per usual, as most companies tend to do. Africa is an afterthought or a continent or a consumer they don't tend to look at. So for us, if we're saying that we are Jendaya solving a problem, not knowing fully well it's not just a problem that happens in West Africa, all over Africa, then we truly have to be Pan-African. Now in our strategy, the idea is that we form strategies for every African country. So we understand how luxury is consumed in those countries and the nuances and the issues for those countries in terms of consumption of luxury, specifically with e-commerce, and then roll that out to make sure we capture and we actually, provide the service that the consumers on those in those countries need. So for us, we are taking it country by country. So for example, the e-commerce pilot that's coming, we are starting specifically with Ghana and Nigeria. We do have pilot shoppers from Senegal, from Morocco and Mali, other African countries. But in terms of our strategy initially, it's country by country, and for our pilot, it's specifically Ghana and Nigeria. So the idea is to be Pan-African and cater to everyone on the African continent. But we know that it's going to be a journey, and the other benefit is, yes, Jendaya is available globally. So we can be sitting in London or LA and also order off Jendaya because, at the end of the day, it's a business. And we want everyone to engage. We need the dollars. We need people to buy, but our focus is the African consumer on the continent and in diaspora as well. So.
Amazing. I think fashion is definitely vibrant across the continent, and it's amazing to see, I guess, the different nuances as you move from country to country, looking into their fashion and I guess their consumer dynamics also. So how do you and your team at Jendaya plan on cultivating a community on the ground and fundamentally boosting brand visibility?
Amazing. So I think, one of the, I like what you mentioned earlier in terms of, the world moving towards, content, commerce and community, and specifically now on the African continent, that fashion being vibrant. When we take all of those different elements, that's why you see in terms of our branding, it's vibrant, it's different, it's very luxury. You wouldn't say that, oh, it's probably like a mid-tier or a fast fashion brand. You would just say that, Jendaya is definitely a luxury platform, but you see it's green, it's verdant, it's orange, it's pink. We wanted to mimic that, first of all, the vibrancy and that point of difference that you see on the continent. So that's one. But secondly, in terms of like creating that kind of community, what we've been doing is very much so like connecting and trying to, first of all, put a lot of Black faces to represent our brand, because we know, yes, Africa is not just Black, but we're the majority of people on the continent of Africa are Black. And so for once, we wanted people to see themselves as the main representation of what it means to have a luxury platform, a luxury e-commerce platform. The same way we've acclimatized to all these other platforms and all these other brands, mainly using white faces, that doesn't mean it's not for us. The same way we've taken that on, so that's something we intentionally did and we've stuck to from the beginning. Not to say we don't have, white collaborators or non-Black collaborators. That's not what I'm saying, but we're doing exactly, what we've been seeing and we're acclimatized to now, given like the luxury space. So that's one. Secondly, what we've also been doing is tapping into these sorts of like kind of social pockets from the different kind of regions in Africa. So we've got people on the team who specifically have exposed us to, for example, French-speaking country influencers and the countries there and how they consume luxury there, and and in East Africa as well. We are also intending to have representatives in each country. As I said, our country by country strategy in terms of, okay, a representative in Zimbabwe, a representative in Kenya, a representative in Senegal, so we can definitely better understand how luxury is consumed, the issues in those countries, who are the influencers we need to speak with, who are the influencers we need to use, what are the brands specifically those countries love to see and love to shop in terms of the brands that are out there. But also it's our job in there to also allow our global customer to discover new brands. So we're curating brands as well that we know that our consumers and our customers will also like. So that's the kind of way that basically on a top level we're trying to like create that community on the continent.
Sure. So in just sort of following on from that, what have been your interesting fashion finds since working in this space, notably in luxury in
Yeah,
Africa?
yeah. I mean, you know, it's I would first and foremost just say the wealth of brands that are either based on the continent or by Africans in diaspora. Because usually
Mm,
when we think luxury, we think the general list of names, and those names are doing great things and they set a precedent. But we often forget that, you know, sometimes a lot of the inspiration, not sometimes, a lot of the times comes from the continent. And we
mm,
have people who are the first to do this and the first to do that, but then their stories aren't told and it's retold to be someone or something else. And so, you know, for me specifically, it's actually just opening up my palette to finding more African like brands, luxury brands. And when we say luxury, I know we tend to have a very Western perception of what luxury is. So we kind of learning and we kind of acclimatizing myself to what that actually means. And luxury could just be, you know, how great the workmanship and the craftsmanship is, not necessarily that it's got a high price point. Or it might just be, and it might be a high price point too, but there's so
mhm,
much more out there. So the discovery of brands on the continent has been one. And again, slightly actually what I was mentioning before in terms of, you know, when we tell stories here. So for example, I remember when Rihanna's brand launched in Selfridges, and they were saying, oh, the first Black woman cosmetic brand to launch in Selfridges. Again, because of the fact that we've been speaking to an onboarding brand from the continent or from Africans in diaspora, we realized actually, no, the first Black woman to have a cosmetic brand in Selfridges was a lady from, I believe, I've forgotten, Kenya. And I believe the name of her brand has just skipped my mind, but she was actually the first Black woman to have her cosmetics.
mm,
So, you know, that's been the kind of the things I've been discovering. That actually, no, there is a real retelling of like history and stories.
mhm,
If you don't know, you're none the wiser. But now I know because I'm in this space. I'm speaking to designers for apparel and cosmetics and whatever from the continent. And I think one thing to note is actually that, you know, Genera is actually, as I said, is a discovery for, you know, for diverse brands, global brands. So we're not just onboarding African brands. We've got the likes of, you know, Balenciaga and Balmain and all of
mm,
that as well, because it's meant to be that healthy intersection, because we know that Africans on the continent like to mix. They want to wear a Jack Moose with a Lisa Polario or a Rich Moose and
mm,
Versace. So we know that, and that's because of the research. So we're catering to that. But we've also got, you know, as I said, those brands from Africa that you might not know, apart from the Lisa Polarios and the Mazel Studios and all the rest. We've got brands from the continent you wouldn't know. We've got brands in diaspora from Africans you wouldn't know. And we've got brands from Europe people wouldn't know.
wow.
We've got brands from Spain, from Japan, from Mexico. We've got brands from everywhere, from Brazil. So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I think it's great to see that you are fundamentally serving both ways, if you will. So let's speak more about the Jendaya team. So from what I researched online, it seems like it's such a nice balance between male and female, which I, as a female advocate, am very, very glad to see. But as we know, in the startup world and in the world of entrepreneurship, building a team isn't easy. So how did you actually go about building your team, sharing your vision, and fundamentally pushing towards that common goal?
Perfect. I think you know, what you mentioned is something that I get asked all the time. I'm looking for a team. I'm looking for a team. How did you do it? And I
Mm,
think for me, I've always, as I said before, I've always been like a networker. And
mm,
again, my friends know, but like if I speak to someone, I tend to just remember everything that they've done. So their
mm,
educational profile, I'm like a CV muncher. And like speaking to someone, I remember this is what you studied, this is where you went, and this
wow.
is what you currently do. So if I ever speak to somebody else, I'll be like, oh, there's someone I can connect you to. Because and so for when it came to me with Jendaya, it was easy. I was like, okay,
Mm,
I immediately thought of Kemi because you know, she went to UCR, I was at Queen Mary, and we had been friends because of the intra ACS events. And so when I wanted to pursue the idea and explore it, she was the first person that came to mind because, you know, again, you know, international student from Nigeria, but very Pan-African, had lived in different African countries, interested in fashion. Also in banking, we had like, you know, commonalities. I was like, let me bring it
mm,
up with Kemi. I'm sure she'd like get it and she'd be able to add to this. So that was how Kemi came on board. Like literally the first day I thought of the idea, I spoke to her. And over the time, we've had like different people come and go from the team. But again, it was because I knew that they either had interest in logistics, interest in Africa, interest in fashion, and or by a recommendation. And then with Tenny coming aboard, Tenny was more so recently joining the co-founding team. Her and Kemi have been friends since from Nigeria. And you know, Tenny studied at Exeter the year before I did, the class before I did, in terms of like the cohort, the year. And so, I mean, we never had seen each other before her joining the team, but I had always heard good things about her. Yeah, I'd always heard good things about her. And so when we were like, we need somebody else to come like join the co-founding team, and Kemi mentioned Tenny, I was like, I've always been hearing about her. You know, I mean, even her mum is there, Lesego, a very big haute couture kind of designer from the continent, based in Nigeria. And so I already was like, she sounds great. I've heard good things about her. And Kemi was like, I know her personally, and I think she'd be a great fit. So, you know, and that's how the co-founding team came together. But we do have a wider team of consultants as well. And that's been either through me just knowing that that person is a good fit for a specific kind of role, or somebody recommending someone, and like we get along and we're like, yeah, let's do this. So yeah, I think, but in terms of like kind of selling that common goal, I think the baseline generally just has to be either two things. I've realized for Jendaya anyway, either an interest in Africa or an interest in fashion. Because I think everyone these days is interested in being an entrepreneur, or has a side hustle or something else they want to do outside work, which is great. You know, multiple streams of income, and we're not just one dimensional. We have things we like to explore. But I think over the years, having people come and go from the team, and I think what's really easy, or what makes things really easy, what makes people stay, is either one of those two things. If it's both, then great, but an interest in fashion and an interest in Africa, that's what has helped either us to sell the vision and have people in the team. So.
Amazing. I think the key lesson for viewers and listeners, and in general for any entrepreneur, professional or creative, is networking, the power of networking, the power of conversation, and actually building relationships, because it's not necessarily a checklist of, oh, I know this person in banking, this person in law, and this person in professional services. It's more so cultivating those relationships, because like you said, it made the transition for your friendship into networking, into actual business relationships. So that's great to hear. But doing business in Africa isn't easy. I think that I would actually say it's challenging, to say the least. So in your journey with Jendaya, what have been, you'd say, your two main challenges you face within your team, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, I think I guess one is that probably the location issue. So I'm based in London, but the great thing is Tenny coming on board, being based in Lagos, has really helped and been like quite a good game changer, because we have someone on ground, and that has also helped us acquire team members on ground as well, because they have a face on ground to speak to. And then Kemi is based in New York. So the location issue before Tenny coming on board, that was very difficult, because when we were trying to do things out in Lagos, we're trying to do things out in other African countries, Ghana or wherever, it was just like, how would we logistically do it? And yeah, we have friends and family on ground, but they're not on the team. They don't really get what we're trying to do. And you know, so it was very difficult to even do shoots, we tried to organize offline events. It was just all very difficult. And so, you know, that geographical kind of split divide between us was hard, because, you know, and trying to do something for the continent, you have to be on the continent, you have to have the continent. I mean, and yes, Kemi goes back every year, like maybe two times a year, you know, and I haven't been back in a while, but I'm very much in tune and aligned with what's going on the continent. But yeah, I think initially that geographical split was difficult, and now we've been able to overcome that. But secondly, I think an even bigger thing, especially doing e-commerce, is the infrastructure on the ground for delivery, and how we've been able to overcome that has actually been a journey in itself. So the same way a business or a startup evolves, our understanding of the infrastructure and how to be a competent e-commerce company on the continent has also evolved. So that has also involved us speaking to different vendors. So initially we thought we'd only need DHL, because DHL actually have spent a lot of money, upwards of 50 million on the continent, making sure they can deliver far and wide to every corner of the continent without postcodes. But we then realize that, well, people have been using DHL and they still run into issues. So what else are you bringing to the table? So then kind of maybe it's partnering up with other tech firms in terms of actually making that kind of last mile delivery actually even more efficient, even better, or partnering with tech firms to make the delivery system more smooth and making sure that things are delivered to the right locations. And then even still actually looking out for companies we can partner with to help us with customs, because customs is a big issue with customs. Even now, actually trying to look for companies to partner with for last mile delivery efficiency. So that has been a work in progress, and I think will continue to be a work in progress, just because in our space anyway, even when focusing on the West, a lot of e-commerce companies have to invest in or create their own logistic solutions. That's just a given. So more so for Africa, I know that logistics is always going to be a work in progress and an evolution. And we might even have to, create our own additional logistics solutions. So, yeah.
Well, that's interesting, and I think very telling of the continent, the way it currently exists, and I guess where we're moving towards. So now, just to delve into the future of Africa, because Africa seems very sexy at the moment. It's very much like a new focus. Yeah. So, what do you think? I guess of the future of e-commerce within the continent, and how does Jendaya fit into that growing ecosystem?
Okay, so I think in terms of the future of e-commerce, I think it's only going to get better. Infrastructure, it might take a while, but infrastructure is getting better. Some countries are far ahead than others on the continent. I mean, Nigeria is a peculiar case. Literally, of all of the countries that where we have pilot shoppers on, Nigeria is a country we're most worried about. So they're definitely behind the West when it comes to delivery, infrastructure, and logistics. Yeah. But we're sure as a whole, the continent will get better because of the investment internally by different startups and multinational companies to ensure that we know that's going to get better. Secondly, in terms of e-commerce in itself, mobile use on the continent is the second biggest after China. So it's only inevitable, and it makes sense as to why infrastructure has to get better, because everyone's on their phones, everyone's shopping on their phones, and I mean, it only took the pandemic to show that e-commerce is a must, is the way to go. If you don't have e-commerce embedded in your strategy as a brand, then what are you doing? And in a way, the pandemic was great for that. As they say, booming at the moment, and even more so on the continent. And I think basically the backdrop in Africa for e-commerce right now, we see companies like Jumia, and I know there's some talk around that in terms of how well are they really doing and all of that. But I mean, they ended up obviously floating on the exchange and things like that. There's companies like Tonga, and even in different African countries specifically, there's local players that also, that cater to different countries on the continent. So I think there's that growth in the space of e-commerce, whether it's for everyday goods like an Amazon, or whether it's for apparel like a Afrocrea. There's that growth. So we're happy to see that. And even just generally in the West, since the last 4 months, I'm just hearing deal after deal after deal in the e-commerce space. So it's definitely going up, trending upwards. Now, in terms of where we see Jendaya fitting into that, I think we're occupying a space that is but very much left open, which is that luxury catering to the customer who has an interest and who is a luxury shopper, who is savvy, is a trendsetter, is fashion forward, and who loves to shop when they're in the UK or in the US, who loves to go to Bergdorf Goodman, who loves to shop on Net-a-Porter. And they wait to do that because they're like, when I'm at home in Mozambique or in South Africa or wherever, I don't really, one, I don't know how long it's going to take. Two, it's going to just kill me with the cost. And three, sometimes these platforms don't even deliver to me, And so for us, we're saying, guys, we hear all of the pain points, and we are catering to you. So yes, as I said again, it's available globally, but our strategy is actually for the African consumer. So you'll see that in the brands that we've got on there. You see that in the items we've chosen to list from those brands. You see that in the sense that again, even working with African brands from the continent, we're not forcing them to be ready to wear, but also we also have things that are available made to order on pre-order, because not every brand works in that sort of like fast fashion way. So we on that, we also have, you know, the availability of personal shoppers on our platform, because we know that some people, you know, especially Africans with high net worth individuals, they love that extra service. They love that they love it in that way. And so, you know, but we've provided that for every shopper on the platform. So it's not just a VIP thing. It's everyone has access to a personal shopper and allocated personal shopper, so they can feel, you know, that extra level of luxury. So, you know, yeah, so I think we're filling that space. Whereas, you know, what I'd say is our competitors, either the big players from the West, aren't really looking at Africa right now. You know, they know the power of the dollars and the power of the consumer from the continent, but they're more of an afterthought. So we're like, that's fine, we'll do it, and you come and acquire us. And those who are either maybe looking at that space, they're more looking at taking African designers global. So you might have heard of, you know, maybe the folklore industry Africa, but they're looking at taking African designers on the continent and in diaspora and making them as globally viable as Academia or as Givenchy via the platform. So whereas we're looking the other way, we're saying, look, the guys on the continent, here's the Versace and here's the Lisa Falario you want to you here. And when you're in London, you can also shop from us.
Exactly.
The item isn't on Farfetch, it might be on Jendaya. But also when you're at home, you have the comfort and the luxury and the trust in knowing that, look, if I'm going to London in 2 weeks, actually I can order that item on Jendaya now. So, yeah.
Amazing. Now, this is not me like speaking prophetically or anything, but I actually think Jendaya is primed for success, given the fact that you are meeting you are meeting the needs of the African consumer, but your finger is on the pulse because you are cognizant of the logistics issues and any other issues that you may be facing. And thankfully you have things that are incoming, like the continental free trade agreement that will hopefully eliminate some of the customs issues, and you are looking at that final end of delivery and, you know, partnering with tech firms and people that are in certain countries to ensure that delivery is facilitated in an efficient manner. So I'm definitely excited to see the future of Jendaya. And when I'm in Ghana, I'm looking on the Jendaya site for things to be buying. Sure. So what actually excites you the most about the development of the continent? Again, sort of thinking about Africa as the sexy buzzword at the moment.
I think what excites me most is actually the talent coming out of the continent. Terms of,
agreed.
Again, as I said, like there's so many brands that I've discovered on this journey of Jendaya and building Jendaya, because we have the mandate to diversify what it means to be luxury and create a new diverse standard for the industry, right? So that means that we had the job of like finding new brands, finding new designers to onboard. And so for me, what I'm excited about is the talent coming out of the continent. There's so many brands, you know, and usually when we think Africa, we tend to think West Africa, so Ghana, Nigeria, but Africa, that's why again we are intentionally trying to be Pan-African. There's so many brands from all over the continent that we've been discovering, and that's what's exciting me. And because I do know that the West, with the focus on Africa, they're willing to invest in the business of fashion, and actually countries themselves are waking up to the understanding and the realization that fashion can be a large GDP driver. You know how much companies like Richemont and LVMH contribute to their bottom line GDPs in their countries. Like, so the African countries are starting to realize that and starting to set up programs and initiatives to encourage and invest in the growth of the talent, the design talent coming from their countries, so within their countries. So that's what excites me. And Jendaya actually has a mandate to actually also help with the sustainability and the growth of the brands, of the specifically the African brands that we're listing on the continent. So things that we're looking to do and things that we're already doing is, for example, in terms of the commissions that we take, because as I said, we're a marketplace, we take less for any African and emerging brands. We don't take as much as what we charge for Western brands. That's one. Secondly, we're working with a startup to allow African brands to eventually be able to apply for friendly loans based on the sales metrics they have in Jendaya. We're also working with another company called Tribu, which are by the Latin American Fashion Summit. So it's a platform kind of like Business of Fashion meets LinkedIn, where fashion brands are able to meet investors, manufacturers, and just people in the business of fashion, where they can help them kind of develop and like network, raise funds and things like that. So working with them, it's about funneling the African and emerging brands we have on our platform onto Tribute, so they can start making use and taking advantage of the platform at a discount. So we're doing things like that. What else are we doing? We're doing a trunk show. Hopefully, oh, this is not exclusive, but yeah, we are doing a trunk show with another, with a partner, with another e-commerce platform, a very, very great e-commerce platform who I've gotten to know the founder over the last year. And, you know, we're excited in terms of shining the light on African brands to the demographics that they serve, and we'll be putting on some sustainable brands from the LATAM region onto Jendaya to, you know, expose them to our demographics as well. So yeah, so doing things like that.
Amazing. I think to kind of coin that all quite nicely is to say Jendaya fundamentally is going to be a forerunner when it comes to e-commerce in Africa, notably in the fashion space, given that you are touching on the key touch points for the African consumer, but also looking at the actual brand owners, you know, and looking at ways in which you can talk to their sustainability issues and also any other issues they may face as founders, given the whole funding and investment into African brands. So you did kind of answer my final question, but to sort of sum it all up, what would you say people should keep an eye out for when it comes to yourself and for Jendaya in the coming year?
Amazing. So in terms of what to keep an eye out, first of all, sign up. So on our website, you will see the little pop-up, you see the static boxes, just sign up there, because in September, we'll be launching our e-commerce pilot, which is invite only. We're gonna give a cohort and access to our e-commerce platform, where you'll be able to, shop the brands that we've onboarded, you know, have a personal shopper to help you style things, and source things that we might not actually have listed. They'll help you source those exclusive things as well. And that being a Jendaya pilot shopper also means that you'll have be able to shop the trunk show that we do, shop the exclusive capsules that we'll be doing with a pretty iconic brand sometime next year. And you'll be the first into that world of Jendaya before, you know, it's opened up to everyone across the world, specifically our African customers. So definitely sign up. So you'll start receiving our emails weekly in the countdown to launch, where you receive the access code to shop the platform. So yeah, I think that's the main thing to look out for. We're potentially planning some offline events. So you know, that might be on the cards. So yeah, those are the main things to look out for, I think. Yeah, those are the main things to look out for.
Amazing. That sounds all very, very exciting. So I'll be sure to put all of the social media links down in the description box below and in the show notes, etc., for everyone to go ahead and sign up to Jendaya, to keep an eye on the growing platform, and to be sure to shop Jendaya if you're in Africa and in the global market. So thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Likewise. Pleasure having the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Amazing.